keep your head up, because I think a lot of them get frustrated with the system. But if they can just stay in there and be positive when they return, I think everything will work out for them.
Thank you, and we're thinking of you.
Thank you for all your efforts and your sacrifices, mainly, and to other families as well.
We appreciate your help and stay strong.
Welcome back. Remembrance Day gives us pause to consider the sacrifice of so many of Canada's soldiers past and present. For some, they give the ultimate sacrifice. For others, the battle scars can be hidden. In our next report, we uncover the spiritual treatment needed when a government pension plan just won't cut it.
At 51, Captain Greg Bailey traded in his clerical collar for the camouflage uniform of the Canadian Forces. And at 55, he was off to war.
We were used to hearing from the gospel the quotation from Jesus that greater love hath no man than this, than to lay down his life for his friends. And I began to realize that I could no longer ever preach that again if I wasn't prepared to do it myself.
And tell us about the most challenging part for you serving in Afghanistan.
Every day, it seemed for the longest while, around sundown, the soldiers and members of the forces from about 15 different nations would gather together at the flight line at Kandahar airfield to bid farewell to their comrades or ours. And it was difficult, not because of the profound sadness, because in a sense one gets used to that sometimes. But I personally found it difficult because I didn't want this endless succession of caskets to become meaningless. I wanted to see each one as a life that was offered and given for the service for others.
Caring for the soul, Captain Bailey believes, is as necessary as body armor.
We are body, mind, and soul. That's the way that we're created. You take care of the body, you feed it, you exercise it, you do all kinds of things. You do the same thing for the mind. The soul also needs that nurture.
What are some of the most difficult questions you've had to answer during that decompression process?
When we were bringing soldiers home through Cyprus, almost every plane load of soldiers that came through the island would ask me, Padre, when I was in a firefight and I saw the enemy falling, I reacted in a certain way. Either I laughed, or I was glad, or I felt elated, or what have you. Am I turning into a monster? Am I going to go to hell? And I'd be able to give them the assurance that, in fact, no, they weren't going to hell. In fact, it wasn't the act of killing that made them feel good. It was the fact that the enemy that was going to kill them had been eliminated. And in terms of how that fits spiritually, am I going to hell?
That question gets answered earlier, when the Padre helps soldiers work through the issue of whether they are prepared to meet their Maker.
I get a range of answers on this, and some people, the jaws drop, and you hear the jaws sort of hitting the floor, as if to say, gee, I don't know. And that's an honest answer. Bottom line is that if people don't have some sort of answer to that question, then they're not sufficiently prepared to face the traumas that they may have to face.
It would seem incredible that in a time of war, sometimes the best line of defense for a soldier is their faith. But former Chief of Defense General Rick Hillier, who led the Canadian Forces throughout much of the Afghanistan mission, believes this to be true. In the foreword of the Canadian Forces edition of the Bible, he writes, "I believe that spiritual fitness can enhance the effectiveness and resilience of men and women wearing Canada's uniform."
But if, for example, they have a spirituality or a spiritual life that answers questions relating to life, death, and hope, and if their spiritual life is vigorous, then they may find dealing with the traumas that they will face overseas much less difficult, I won't say easier, but less difficult than the people who have nothing else to cling to.
When soldiers display significant levels of operational stress injury or post-traumatic stress disorder, is Jesus enough?
What you're looking at is total healing. And that means that the body needs to be healed if it's broken, the mind needs to be healed if it's broken, and the spirit needs to be healed if it's broken. Prayer and medicine is always better than just medicine or just prayer. So it has to be a total approach, it really does.
When we return, the hidden weapon we need to be using to help out our soldiers. Those thoughts in The Wrap.